welcome back to SharePoint Community Television. I'm Caruana Gatimu, and once again we're here with a distinguished panel of members from the community to talk about how you can learn to build local community in your area. Brought together some amazing people who have a lot of experience about building community, so I'm really happy everyone is here today. We have Rick Taylor and Susan Lennon, Eric Harlan, and Pune Kaufman. I'll give them a chance to introduce themselves and let you know what their history is, but the real purpose today is so that you can understand how to get involved, what to do in your local area, and what resources are available to you. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone.
Thank you.
Welcome. Glad everybody is here. Has everybody had a good SharePoint conference?
Yes.
Yes, tiring, but
It was an excellent, I know, we're all a little exhausted, but it was an amazing conference. I love coming to the conference because you feel so much enthusiasm and energy from this community and from everybody involved in it. So, Renee, you're one of our West Coast reps. You and I have done a lot of work out there in Los Angeles.
Yes, definitely, and I love it. I mean, I've been so fortunate to have the opportunity. We started, the LA SharePoint user group, and so we work very closely with that community. We've reached out to a lot of people. We've been going on 4 years. 4 years now. We actually have the LA SharePoint user group every other month right now at the Microsoft store in Century City. So we love the location. It's great visibility for us. People come and get to interact. So it's another way of motivating, our community to come in. It's not always about the free food and the free drinks. It's actually not focusing on the knowledge, getting collaboration, getting the people really excited. And what better place than the Microsoft store to, they have lots of great events there. So it's really great vibe. I love it there. Yeah,
the vibe there is it's a tremendous amount of fun.
Yeah.
Tremendous amount of fun. And Eric and Susan, both of you, of course, are on the main board for spsevents.org. If folks haven't checked out that site, they most definitely should. So much going on about SharePoint Saturdays out in the community. But talk a little bit about how you run things and how you work with the organizers at that local level.
Yeah, so until recently, that's been a little bit of a scattered question. There hasn't really been a specific theme that we go about. So one of the things that we're doing while transitioning from SharePointSaturday.org to SPSEvents.org is trying to finite that process, make sure that everyone has proper communication and everyone knows exactly where we are, but at the same time, obviously revamping the site with new features, new content, and just making it easier for everyone in the community, not just the hosts, to understand what's actually going on and be a part of the events in their area. So.
But we're also trying to enlist the organizers too, and start that communication between the board and the organizers, so they feel more a part of the overall organization, and we can all learn from one another and that type of thing, and
as
then
well
help
as
get that
spreading the
communication.
tasks, right? I mean, we've
Yes.
taken on so much of that in the past, and finally now we have the embodiment to actually say, okay, we need these people in this region and these people in this region. We're going to go to a more regionalized, perspective, like East, Central, and then West, and obviously in the U.S. But then those things kind of change a little bit with global stuff. We'll have to figure that out, but everything is still pretty new. And hopefully, with these more regional mentors, the folks who are really understanding of what SharePoint Saturdays are in those particular areas, there'll be a little bit more outlet for help and questions and
We
answers.
keep delegating that, right? And so that's what we provide is guidance,
Right.
That's all we really do is recommendations and guidance and a general calendar to help people kind of understand when they might want to hold events based upon availabilities of other speakers and that type of thing, and not competing too much with when somebody in their region might have that type of event.
Yeah, because the community calendar is growing, right? There's so many things that are going on. Every weekend there's a SharePoint Saturday someplace.
Pretty much.
Every week there's a SharePoint event, whether it's a formal conference event, a SPUG, a real community event. There's so many things going on. So I think that hub of information is going to be really critical for folks moving forward. And Rick, you're there in Phoenix. So tell us a little bit about yourself first, and then what's going on out there in Arizona.
Well, my name's Rick Taylor, and I'm one of the leaders for the Arizona SPUG, and former Microsoft, and now just doing my own thing. So it's I've been able to see a lot of different community events through Microsoft eyes, through other corporate eyes, and it's a great thing. It's awesome. It's a lot of fun. And what we do in Arizona is it's kind of interesting. Phoenix is it's probably the largest small city or smallest large city that you'll ever come across.
Yes, true.
It's got that West Coast feel, kind of laid back, but we're very, very spread out. So it's hard to really get there. So we meet once a month, the first Wednesday of each month. And there's a lot of support from the local training center there in Phoenix. So that's where they host it for free, and they also sponsor with food. And it helps bring everybody in, and we're supported by what we call the partners. So they're larger consulting firms like a Sagetti or a Statera or a Nudesic, something like that. And they support it with speakers and a lot of the content. So we've got a lot of support there, and then other people that work in different other companies that come in. So the way that we keep it fresh is by asking for speakers from among the local people. So we can get that from any, we could always have, a speaker like a Dux or a Bill English come in, and that's great. But we want to get the community involved, and so by doing that, that's when we start asking people right there in the local community to participate.
And don't you think, I think that's an excellent point. I really feel like part of the job of community is to mentor local people, to make sure they're involved, and to make sure that they, they feel like they're a part of something.
Exactly.
We deal with that, of course, in LA too. So what do you think about that, Pune?
No, definitely. I mean, obviously, us as leaders and community builders, I mean, we are very passionate about what we do. I mean, we're fulfilled with our jobs, but there's something else that drives us to this. And I think being out there and conveying that passion and people get excited about it is wonderful. And so I think that attracts people. And then having their feedback from all the sessions that we do and engaging them. We do a lot of socialization across Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn, and really trying to engage the community about what topics they want to hear about, what they're looking for. And then on top of that, a lot of them reach out to us individually through LinkedIn and ask for support, kind of what we're doing, ask for feedback on SharePoint questions. So, I mean, it's amazing, to be able to have that reach to the community.
And I know, like in the Puget Sound, so, going from LA up to Redmond now, the Puget Sound user group, they do a lot of that as well. And I've had emails from people where, I'm new to Los Angeles, I'm new to this area, how do I get connected?
Exactly.
How do I get connected and what's going on? But there was another thing that you touched on that I wanted to just bring up for a second, which is a large geographic area, right? Because, for instance, in the LA Basin, there's the LA SPUG, there's Orange County SPUG,
Yep.
and San Fernando Valley SPUG.
Yes.
Right? And I think that's good because it gives people that regional flexibility, right? They can do their own thing in their own area. And I know that's a tenet of what
You have to.
yeah, because you're not going to drive, right? It's easier for me to fly somewhere than to get to the valley from where I used to live in there. But as a tenet of community, I think sometimes people have to understand that it's not about ownership.
Exactly.
It's about sharing and about that flexibility. I know you deal with that in SharePoint Saturdays also. Eric, what's your thoughts?
Well, everyone has, the beauty about these community events is it's not only community building, but it's also personal career building.
Yes.
So there's a lot of, shuffling around between making sure that, you are publicly visible, but as well you're providing for the community as well. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that should be embraced because in some of the conversations we were having earlier this week, in some of the other sessions that we recorded, my take on the way that people are embracing themselves and embracing their career path is being almost directly influenced by the community involvement.
Yes.
And it just relates back to a better way of life for their family. And, long term, if you think about it really, really outside the box, it's like, their kids can go to a better college. I mean, it's a stretch, right? But it really does mean that. And when you get into places that are, far flung and not really, tier 1 markets, Nairobi, Kenya, that we keep coming back to that this week, but that's a huge example. There's people there now being part of a community that just started from SharePoint Saturday a couple months ago that will literally see their lives impacted and directly influence their career path, because I've seen it in mine, and I'm in a tier 1 market. So
Exactly,
I know
me
it's
too.
happening. Yeah.
That's absolutely true. I've certainly seen it in mine.
And that was one of the goals for SharePoint Saturday originally, right, was to be able to reach those areas that weren't reached. But SPUG does so even more so. Because a SharePoint Saturday, you're bringing in sponsors, lots of sponsors,
Lots of
and
sponsors.
multiple speakers, not just a speaker and a sponsor,
And
then a
once a
SPUG.
year.
Right. Whereas a SPUG is, the periodicity is a whole lot more,
Mhm.
but you have so much less that you're doing. But, so it can be, and even farther flung areas.
Exactly.
And so there's almost a tier of that community too, but also kind of goes to what Rick was talking about with getting your local speakers in there, right?
Yes.
Because you're
Yeah.
growing from so almost the SPUG is the lowest,
Mhm.
other than there are companies that actually have their SPUGs within a company.
Right.
But
Yes, they
Yeah.
are.
but
right.
beyond that,
Yeah.
right,
Foundational.
if you're really looking at community, right, so you get from SPUGs to like a SharePoint Saturday, and growing the speakers up through
Mhm.
getting them that kind of capability
Mhm.
and practice,
Mhm.
right, and get over the fear.
Yes.
And one of the things that I've seen that's very successful with respect to that, a lot of locals don't feel like, well, we had Bill English last week, or Rick Taylor,
Right.
How do I
or
follow
last
that?
month, how do I feel?
Right, exactly.
And so a really good solution for that for SPUGs is to do lightning rounds. And so what we'll do, we do SQL and SharePoint. So what we'll do is just say, what's your favorite tip? Or what's a PowerShell command you liked? Or a T-SQL command you liked? Or an STS-ADM command you liked? Pick it. You know,
Great.
what was something that you either discovered or saved your bacon?
That's
Mhm.
great.
And just come show your most, it's almost like Christian goes around doing the one thing about.
Yes.
Right.
It's like
Yes.
do your one tip, and then we have 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
And
That's
that
great.
that kind of
That's a great
boosts.
idea.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I
so
love
back,
it.
back in Baltimore, actually, this became a little bit of a problem. So Baltimore is a very tricky market. It's
Not
Not
DC.
DC.
It's not
Yeah.
DC.
Right.
It's not Philly or New York. It's right kind of in the smack of things, and there's I think one Fortune 500 company. It's like T Rowe, and that's it. There's nothing else there. I mean, small, consulting firms and that sort of thing. So not a horn toot kind of thing, but just from the influence in the speaker conference circuit and that sort of thing, we had the ability to pull in other speakers, like big name speakers. But we started to see that as we did that, we had a regression of local speakers that didn't want to speak.
Yeah.
Right, so we actually did
Backlash,
exactly
huh?
that, where we said 15, 20 minutes, and you do like a mini session. We'd have 2 mini sessions a night or something like that. But that actually transferred over to the SharePoint Saturday thing, where early on with SharePoint Saturday, it was all grassroots. We didn't know where it was going to go. It's more refined now, but the first Baltimore SharePoint Saturday, we did. We had a lot of people come in that were national and global speakers, and then toward the end, the last one that I helped run before I moved away, we did where we specifically took names off of the submissions and picked
Yes.
specific,
Yes.
and anyone who was local had first priority.
Yes.
Because we
Yeah.
wanted to push that local feel.
Yeah,
So-
yeah.
And that's an example of leadership, right? That's a key example of leadership that I think all of us, are embracing in the regional areas. Is at this point, for me, if I could speak, that's all well and good, but it's much better if I can pick someone else to do it,
Right.
right? And mentor that person.
Yeah.
Make sure that they can get, over, like as you were saying,
That's what community
any
is
fears.
about.
Yeah, exactly. I've spoken 1,000 times. I don't really need to do it anymore, right? It's very, very important that we show that leadership and be inclusive, in that way. And anybody getting into the SharePoint community needs to understand that that's a tenet of what we're trying to
That's the
to
whole
bring.
teach them to
That's
fish,
it,
right?
yeah.
Teach them to fish,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Make
what-
sure.
What's been
Absolutely.
interesting at ours is, and then way back in the last few sessions we've had, has been really, they've been asking more for not vendors or, people that are very well known. They want to know business problems. They want to learn about business problems and they've asked us to say, can we bring people that are in this group, bring business issues and solutions and show us how you've resolved them and things like that, which is really exciting because I think, thinking about the 2013 calendar, I really want us to focus on doing that because they're like, great, we've seen these leaders, we love them, but really we want to see what you guys are doing in your business. What are you doing at Warner Brothers? How are you, doing social? How are you doing workflows? What is your business problem that you're resolving today? And so it's really exciting, and I think really our focus for next 6 months when we go into 2013 should be in getting the people in the communities there, in our groups, come in there and present.
Yeah.
And have questions for people and say, we're going to talk about this topic. Who's got the most experience in this topic, and give them the opportunity to be leaders, in the presentation. Not always source other people to come in, but actually, take it from within and have them feel more a part of it. I think that's what's been the feedback we've been receiving. So
Right.
The other thing I would just throw out that's almost like to extend community is there's a lot we can learn from other user groups. So I've learned a lot
Good
from
point.
SQL groups, .NET
Sure.
groups. I mean, things like we're doing brown bag lunches or whatever they're doing to help drive membership. what has Inetta done, what has PASS done. There, it doesn't have to just be a SharePoint user group
Yeah.
to
Correct.
learn from and.
Correct, yeah,
you
in
know,
Phoenix,
adapt.
we actually all, the SharePoint user group meets at the same place as the PowerShell user group, is the SQL user group, so we all.
And just on the
actually meet.
same night, right? Exactly.
Well, and that's a key point because and we're trying to continue to try to reach out to those folks. The .NET group is very strong in the
Yeah.
Los Angeles area.
Yep.
And they want to, and those people, the leader was like, we want to understand more of what you're doing. We want to learn more about this and understand SharePoint in this implementation way. You know, we want to come to your group. We want your folks to come to ours and do cross pollination between the areas.
And at this time of the year, another one good thing to do is for your December meeting, just do a holiday meeting of them all,
Exactly.
right? They might work
That's a
together,
good
right?
idea.
And
It's a great idea.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
It's a great idea.
I
We
like
even
that.
like to go to other user groups in other cities, since Phoenix isn't that far from Los Angeles. I've gone to San Diego
Right.
and Orange County.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You're
And
coaching.
so-
You gotta go there.
No, I like to
I'm
go
teasing.
and actually participate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
But
it's
you get
not that
ideas
far.
too,
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Right. No, that's very important. And the cross pollination across the different areas, you know, this is the thing we want to do. There's so much innovation that we can capture
Exactly.
amongst all of us. I'm really excited for the community initiatives that are going to be coming out after the turn of the year and what have you. 'Cause I think it's going to give people an opportunity to even do more of that sharing.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important. Everybody does things differently. We can all learn from each other.
A good idea is a good idea.
Right, doesn't
Yeah,
matter, exactly,
exactly.
exactly. And that's a great point about the other user groups, because we don't have to re-engineer the wheel.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of user group models out there that work just great.
Right, and another example of that is often I've seen like, for instance, in SQL groups, then they have something called SIGs, a special interest. So you can
Oh,
have a
yeah.
SharePoint thing, but then you can have a BI, you can have IT Pro, you can have
Yes.
Dev, right? Workflow, so we, particularly large ones,
Yes.
right, where you have a lot of people. My community is so small, I would have SIGs of 1 and 2 people.
Right.
I need them all together. But in big areas, that is
Right.
something
Yeah.
to really consider. And you might have like a common meeting to go over something kind of general or whatever for folks to share, followed by a half hour or whatever where the SIG split off a little bit just to go deeper
Yeah.
Right.
in their particular area. So it's a
Excellent.
concept to get from what other folks did for other user
They
groups.
do that in Dallas where they split between IT Pro and Dev.
Mhm,
Yeah, it's
mhm.
brilliant,
Each meeting.
right?
Yeah, I think Redmond does too.
Yeah, they do. And here's another thing that I want to get everybody's perspective on this, because I've heard out in the field, you know, it happens sometimes where you have a particular vendor or someone who has sponsored the group a lot, right? Or maybe they're always providing the location outside of Microsoft, always providing the location. And they do get a sort of a sense of ownership of that group. But really, we don't own the groups. The groups are their own, right? We don't own the groups at all. So how do you know, can you guys share your experience with me about how you have those conversations? I certainly know I've done them, but you know, how do you deal with that? Because I think that sometimes you either have a certain key people or a vendor who try to take something over, and it leaves an unpleasant feeling for some of the other group members.
Yes.
And I think we want to talk about that here, because I know lots of people out there deal with it. How can we help them to not be in that situation? Rick, you have a thought?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we have a large sponsor, a very involved sponsor in Phoenix, and trying to help them understand that, you know, this is a community thing. It's everybody is participating, everybody has some skin in it, and it doesn't belong to any one person. And for some, that's an easy concept to understand. For some, not so much. And trying to help them just understand that, you know, I'm here to help. I'm not here to take anything away from you. I'm here to add, and you know, everybody should have some skin in, allow some people to do some things. And so, you know, setting up, for example, a SharePoint Saturday. Okay, that can happen outside, but include them. You know, we're not excluding you. We'd like to include you, but understand that this is a community effort. And then by doing those sorts of things, I can see that, you know what, we don't have to control and, you know, everything come through me or this group. We can actually share everything.
Sometimes it's setting the expectations too,
Right.
because a lot of sponsors and folks, the first thing they're gonna ask you, can I have your membership list? You know,
Yes.
if you wanna come and do a raffle, or you wanna come and ask for their business cards, that's fine. Don't ask me for my membership.
That's
list.
right.
You can
We're not
ask
sharing
me
that.
for about how many people do I have,
Yes.
what kind of,
Demographic breakdown.
exactly, demographics,
That's
that
right.
kind of thing, that's all good. SharePoint Saturday, same kind of thing, but the same thing applies to, I think, for Spugs as well, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it
Yes.
needs to be a community,
Easily
it,
manipulated.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
and
But I
that's,
think it's
we,
important.
leaders
yeah.
have to help
Yes.
protect that,
Yes.
right?
And
steer
say that it's okay to say no.
Right.
You don't have to give out your membership list to get people to be sponsors or be
Hang
involved in your
tough.
group. Just don't be, don't be manipulated, don't be pushed into doing something you don't feel comfortable with. It's not why people are involved, right?
Right.
And you will have plenty of sponsors who will understand and respect that,
Sure.
but you as a leader of the group have to be the one to say, no, we're protecting people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
everybody gets to sign up for things individual. We don't reveal our membership lists on any
Right.
level.
Right, and I've run a user group now for 17 years, so it started with SQL, and it's been through companies I've worked for before, at schools, now it's at a training provider,
Mhm.
and I've been at multiple training providers, right, so they go around. I would say being at a company has the implied more exclusivity
Mhm.
to it, rather than like a library or
Correct.
a school or something like that. But it does need to be, as I tend to readdress where ours needs to be held,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of gets to where is it easy for people to be parking
Exactly.
close to
Logistics.
interstates.
Of
And
course.
while we're not as big as like in LA, we do have a peninsula and we have terrible traffic, not quite DC bad, but we have bad
Yeah,
traffic, and we have tunnels.
Yes.
Right.
Right, so people,
Get stuck in the
people,
tunnel.
yeah, I mean, it can be an hour to an hour and a
Yep.
half to come from the other side of the water. People aren't gonna wanna do that, right?
No.
So,
Right.
so you really need to address the community, their needs, where it can
Yeah.
be,
Yeah.
and that type of thing. And then worry about,
Right.
we're not putting somebody's label on the door and,
Right.
you know, how hard do they have to come in and sign in and do credentials?
Right.
There's a lot to that. So the
Right.
venue is probably one of the things that can be very key to,
Absolutely.
even to the success, just because in a large area,
Yeah.
right, it's gonna make it, I'm not driving that far after work
Yeah.
all day.
Oh yeah, we
Wait,
definitely have dealt
wait.
with that in LA. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, you're absolutely right, and it's funny because even yesterday when we were speaking at the session, we had a girl from upstairs, and she's in Santa Monica, which is literally 20 minutes, not even 20 minutes from Century City, and we were asking her, why aren't you coming to the LA Spa? We really want you involved. We're looking to do all these great things, and she said, I'm in Santa Monica, and to get over to Century City is, it takes me an hour. And it's hard for them to leave, and make a commitment.
Leave
to
early to
Leave
get there.
early. It has to be really something
Yeah.
they're motivated to do, something that really is striking them.
Well, and that's an important thing too, though.
Yes.
I mean, you cannot force motivation,
No,
right?
no.
And
exactly.
I keep looking sometimes at our small numbers, and some people will do things during the day, some things do it the evening, and that's to suit your audience. But you gotta not get discouraged if
Right.
people don't come.
Right.
Because if they don't understand that investing that time is investing in their career
Right.
and networking and all that is both helping a larger community, but it's helping, just like Eric said, right? Their kids are gonna go to a better college.
That's right.
Yeah.
That type
It's
of
true.
thing, if they do not understand that it's on them to spend that time, you cannot make them. And
Right.
really, you don't want them.
And,
No.
and also, another part of that too is, you're going to have a natural ebb and flow of attendance.
Yep.
And you can't let that get you discouraged either, because certainly, like we see that, as you get towards the holidays, attendance gets a little spotty, you come back into January, things come up, we have the holiday party, whatever we do, but I think that that's just part of the ebb and flow of running a group, and sometimes people don't understand that.
Right.
But still, you get to communicate with them and use the tools that you have. I always encourage people, set up your own mailing list, have a couple people that are administrators of it, so you can send out regular communications to people.
Exactly.
People can feel connected that way, and then choose
Yeah.
when they want to come. Choose
So-
what's working for them.
Just to
Yeah.
tag on to the ebb and flow, I get a really nice bounce post SharePoint Saturday.
Yes.
It's like,
Yes.
how could you not have known? But
Right.
still, come.
Sure.
And then it goes up, and then through the
Yeah.
year, it
It
kind of
goes
goes back
down.
down.
We
and-
actually would see in Baltimore, we would see a flux of people based on topic. So if you
Yes.
have
Oh,
a
yeah, you get
you
that
get that
too.
big time.
True.
but I wanted to real quickly go back to the original question of how to kind of make the separation of church and state between sponsored
Yeah.
and
It's an
Right.
important topic.
and it leads to a little bit of a story, so bear with me. But when we first started Baltimore, we were having it at a specific location where the person who created Shadid Eliezer and myself it was just natural we met at that place because there was only 5 of us, so that's where we met. So when we did that, we could kind of see that the company in which we worked for started to kind of wrap their hands around a little bit too tightly, and it literally got to the point where we had to move. And if you find yourself in that position where a company is starting to impose itself, just be flexible enough to move to the next location, and that's perfectly fine. But in addition to that, on like a normal functioning basis, when you're taking sponsors, there's tons of strategies. Yeah, you can take one sponsor. What we did in Baltimore was one sponsor per year. The only cost that we had was food costs. So that sponsor covered food for the entire year. We never had to worry about a ton of sponsors coming in. But what that did leave us open to was now that sponsor has access for a year. So that did add a little bit of, well, you know, we should get access to this and we should have the member list. Well, no, it doesn't really work that way. You can communicate with the membership, but you're not going to get direct access to what their emails are and that sort of thing. So it's really just, you have to set the expectations, like you were saying, be firm in that, because the moment users realize it's not organic and it's forced and it's
Exactly.
like sponsor driven, is the moment you lose them.
Absolutely, and
And we
no,
should be advocates for
yeah,
that.
enthusiasm and that authenticity,
Yeah.
I think that's the gold of it. I think that has to be, as leaders, we have to really be engaged in protecting that at all costs, right? And to be seen as the folks who are kind of have the back of the community members themselves, right? I think is an important part of what it means to be a leader in this community, and to be willing to have those sometimes challenging conversations with people, to leverage your communication skills to do that, and to help people figure that out.
Yeah.
But
And
even
also-
having, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, and also have maybe the conversations, the difficult conversations with the users. If they do see the fact that they're not happy with one sponsor coming in and they want more, it's just say, okay, well, let's make some compromises. You know, these sponsors are also bringing us food, they're bringing us, they're investing in other things for us to have these, sessions and events here. So let's come up with a strategy that will work with both. How about we bag lunch it? How about we, could someone else bring it in, bake something, come in, do something where it's a little bit more creative and not requires where you need the monetary funds from a sponsor. And then, let's have a brown bag session and talk about what Warner Brothers did here, or let's talk about what your company did and how we resolve these business solutions. I think that way they also understand the importance, because sometimes it's easy to say, hey, I don't want to hear that, why are
Right.
these people taking over? But there is value of having sponsorship. But again, to a certain level, you want to make it
Right.
so that people aren't threatened. But if you have those discussions, I think, with
Right.
the users
Yeah,
also.
we've had a bad experience
Yeah.
when a sponsor got a little bit too,
Presumption?
yeah, I guess it was to the point where we wanted to have a speaker, a very well-known speaker, come in from outside, and because of a past issue between that speaker and the host, we weren't able to have the speaker there. And I just thought, wait a minute.
That's
This
nothing to do
person
with
is
it.
coming
Right, has nothing to
in
do
to
with it.
speak to the community, but you don't want this person to come in because of a personal or business thing that you,
Right,
you know,
it's
and
enough.
that really left a bad taste in my mouth, but, and you pick your battles.
Right.
So in that particular case, we just said, hey, we can't have you in this time, but, maybe we'll pick a different location that won't have that issue.
Right.
And
This-
still open it up to the community where the community can benefit. I mean, anytime you stop, if an action stops the community from growing or getting information, then
It's-
we
That's
That's the
Mission.
problem, right?
Right.
And I think that's the key, is that there's a lot of positive energy. And I did want to bring up this topic to give some insight into folks out there as how they can handle this situation. If you have an individual member that's, a little too intense, or if you have this sort of situation, reach out to us. We can help you in that situation. We can give you that guidance. We've all been there, right? But the key is we're growing our memberships, right? We're getting information out to people. There's lots of ways that you can find new locations, right? Reach out to your Microsoft store. If you don't have one, reach out to local, even universities and what have you. We've had success having SharePoint Saturdays on university campuses. There's lots of different ways to do it, and I think that it's about, don't be discouraged by the things. This is a natural part of growing a
Yeah,
community
absolutely.
organization.
But it can also be hard to be objective, right?
Yes.
It's hard to necessarily know that you might be being or contributing towards.
that you're that person.
Right,
Yeah.
sometimes, and almost, it's kind of like what you mentioned, Rick, though, is if you're saying we're not going to or we can't for some reason, if there's a negative in there, a can't, won't, shan't,
Yeah,
revisit that, right? And to what Eric was saying, when you first started and you were together because it made sense, and then you had to move, same type of thing for one of the places where I had been in our user group many years ago, and they were very welcoming to people
Mhm.
until some headhunters wanted to come, and they're like, oh no, not letting the wolf into the chicken coop, and I'm like, but it's community, how can you say free and open to the public, but not.
Right.
Yeah.
And furthermore,
So,
it's great that the
had to
headhunters
move,
are there, right?
Oh,
It's
we
great that
invite
they're
them.
there,
They're-
right?
Well,
They should
In
be
fact, we
there.
have them
But
make
companies
announcements.
aren't
Yeah,
usually,
we
if
do
it's
too.
a
Yeah,
consulting
that's
type
true.
firm or whatever,
They're
they're
not
not
into it.
usually welcoming
Right, I can
people
understand
to
that.
come in and feel like their people are being picked off.
I understand that,
And
right,
SharePoint people are highly,
valued.
yes, sought after.
We actually
We are
have
highly
we have a
sure.
joke where we said we're gonna keep a fishbowl in the user group, and then everybody just takes their business card and they drop it in. And then on your way out, you pick up the card, and whatever company's on the card, that's who you work for now. And so we just bring in, so we have announcements, you know, are there any recruiters here? You know, yeah, we're hiring, you know, everybody knows everybody, and there are competitors that are part of the user group, and
Right.
we all know each other, and,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
it's like, you know what?
If it's done correctly,
It's
it's not
community.
bad.
It-
Well, right, if it's
Yeah.
under, and like, for instance, on our user group, LinkedIn group, we have a jobs board.
Yes.
And that's how we
Yeah,
dealt with
that's
it.
good.
We created a
We have it
jobs
on our
board.
site.
Yeah.
So if you
That's
wanna
good.
post a job, if you're trying to recruit, you wanna get the word out for us, we put it on
That's
the
a good
job board, we
idea.
approve it,
Yeah.
and we do
In
that.
Baltimore, that was actually part of the sponsorship package.
Mhm.
You got access to put stuff on that board.
Right, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Otherwise, you didn't.
Right, right. No, and it has to be moderated and it's vetted by us. We don't just let people randomly post things.
No.
It has to be approved,
Of
right?
course,
So,
of course.
so I think we're coming to the close of our time here, and I think this has been amazing and valuable information for folks who are trying to drive community in their local area. I'd like to get one thing from each of you. If you had one little piece of information that you use to drive membership in your various areas from a SPUG perspective, what would that be? One item. I'm gonna go with you, Eric, first.
Same time, same channel, same location.
Yep.
Every time.
Consistency.
Yes,
Every time, it
yes.
doesn't matter, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter if there's no people showing up, it doesn't matter if you don't have a speaker yet, same time, every time, same place.
Yes.
Because the more you move, the more you change things around, whether, I
They
mean,
get lost.
the only time we ever canceled or changed anything was because of weather, ever. So it's always gonna be that same time, same place.
Yeah.
Yep, very, very
That's
important.
very helpful.
Very important.
No, I agree with that. I think planning is very, very important. Having motivated, interesting topics. You know, to me, that's you have to drive interest, and I think people come out to learn, and so it has to be valuable for them. I mean, consistency is very important, but also, you know, get leaders in there that are enthusiastic, because there's no better thing, I think, than to watch somebody up there that has worked 12 hours, 14 hours a day to go up there and just be the cheerleader still, or, you know, really say, I love this product so much and I'm here to help you learn it because this is how much I think it's valuable for you in the community. This is where you can improve efficiency. This is how you can grow from it and gain skills that are going to make you a better person in your day-to-day activities. And truly, I think that enthusiasm shows. I mean, when we're up there talking about things and interacting with people, people see it, you know, and they want to come because of that. They
That's very
really
true.
do. I mean,
Enthusiasm is everything.
yeah.
The thing that I would throw out there is have an official, if it works, especially if you're in a larger market, having an official like organizing committee so the work gets split up
Yeah.
amongst folks, I
Yeah.
feel is really important because then you
Inclusion.
don't deal with the burnout factor.
You're
We
right.
all have so
Yeah.
many other responsibilities, our regular jobs, our families and what have you. So if you can share organizing this bug and who finds the sponsor this time or who sends out the email or who does the different pieces
You're
of it,
absolutely
you know, it really helps to keep the group consistent and to keep it going and growing.
Well, that's close to my tip.
Okay, there you go.
My tip was recruit recruiters.
Yeah, there you go.
So send out somebody that's gonna go talk to the local university, send out somebody who's gonna go talk to a different particular industry.
Brilliant.
That's-
So,
that's brilliant.
because you've got to get that word out,
Yes.
right? And you always gotta keep getting that word out and discover new places. So
Yeah.
Yes.
you're talking about recruiting people to help and
Yes.
delegate the responsibilities, but you also need to do that for getting the word out and letting people know about it. And I honestly need to do that more. One of the things we
I'm
need to
thinking
go.
the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's a great
Well,
idea.
universities, community
That's
colleges,
there.
those type of places.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of folks about to graduate,
That's
right?
right.
And they're gonna be
Yes.
looking for jobs. Students should be thinking about being in user groups and
Yes.
networking and benefiting from people that already have work experience. So
You
I
are
think that's a,
absolutely right.
That's why I love hosting these panels. I learned so much.
Yeah.
So much. It's brilliant, but that's a brilliant idea and very important. Yeah,
Yes.
very, very important.
Yeah, that, you know, inclusion, I think, and asking people, what do you think about this? And what would you change? When people see that their ideas matter, then they'll want to participate more.
They
And
do.
then they get stronger, and then they'll share, and then you just keep doing the process.
Mhm. And the one last thing I think, make sure you have a formal way for people to give feedback.
Yes.
Make sure you have a formal way for people to give
That's a good
feedback. And it can be anonymous, so some people are uncomfortable with attaching their names to things, but make sure you're open to that feedback. Whether it's suggestions for sessions or just feedback about the group in general, it's important to be open and inclusive going on what
Our
everyone's
group
saying.
again is small,
Mhm.
so similar to that, we start off, I try to start, I forget it many times, but we try to start off, and this is often even for the sponsor who's there, which is
Mhm.
often a recruiting firm, just to go around. Because
Mhm.
again, we're SQL and SharePoint, but what industry you're in, what are you used, are you a SharePoint, are you a SQL, you're a dev, you're IT pro, what? So we talk about that real briefly,
Mhm.
and what you're hoping to get out of the user group and your interest in that type of thing. If you have hundreds of people, that's not gonna work.
Right.
But in a smaller,
Still,
it
yeah.
kind of helps, because it's so easy for somebody to just show up and sit there and never speak.
Exactly, and that's
Right?
what you
And
want to
even if you're
avoid.
not presenting,
Right,
and there can be quiet, they can be soft-spoken, but at least you're starting to get people to
Yeah.
talk. And it's amazing how, just to have said, I work for a shipyard, or I work for the Navy, or whatever, somebody else is like, well, I had no idea, and then, you see a little bit of conversation.
Connected.
yeah.
So that's
never-
another thing too, just to
That's great.
get people to start communicating.
Such valuable information from this panel, really unbelievably exciting. I learned so much just being here myself. I appreciate that tremendously, and I know all the folks who are watching really appreciate everything that you do for the community and what you've done in this panel here today. So I really want to thank you
Thank you.
very
Thank you.
much
Thank you.
for being
Thank
here.
you.
This is SharePoint Community Television. We're excited to share our knowledge and inspiration with you. If you have any feedback, make sure that you go ahead and send that in, and we'll see you again. Thanks.